With all the interest surrounding the reveal of the next Battlefield title, it might be easy to forget another first-person shooter that EA has planned for release over the next year or so. Remember that launch title for the Xbox One called Titanfall? Yeah, well, another one is coming, and that's been confirmed for quite a long time now. The game is due out either late 2016 or early 2017, and the other day we got some really good, solid information about what the game is likely to include. For those that didn't play the original title, Titanfall technically was a very good game, and it was a really good release title for the Xbox One, but ultimately it failed to hold an audience long term. Its Call of Duty-esque style movement system and gameplay catered to a lot of people playing first-person shooters on console already, but it iterated slightly by setting the game in an age where robotics and futuristic weaponry existed. Does it sound like the most recent Call of Duties to you? I bet it does. It even introduced wall running and free movement, which has now been adopted by the Call of Duty franchise. The game back in 2013, I think, was a little bit ahead of its time and didn't really have the clout behind it to sort of force this new style of first-person shooter on an audience that weren't really ready for it. The company that made it, Respawn Entertainment, yes, did comprise of many previous Call of Duty developers, and the majority of those came from the Infinity Ward studio, but it had no track record, and ultimately some design decisions led to the game's steady decline in active players. This time around though, we already have a very good idea as to what the Titanfall franchise is all about, and extending beyond what was offered in the first game is extremely important. And if they're going to include things like wall running and futuristic weaponry and the pilot suits and the Titan suits, then I think players are ready to accept that kind of first-person shooter now, because someone like Call of Duty has already gone and done it and forced it upon a massive audience now. But down to this new information then. Firstly, we now have a solid confirmation that the new game, let's call it Titanfall 2 for now, will have a fully fledged single-player campaign. The previous title was criticised by many media outlets and gamers, although it didn't really affect people's opinion that much, but it was heavily criticised for not including a single-player campaign. And instead, Respawn opted to implement this pseudo-campaign where you join servers with other people to complete co-op missions. The reason for the lack of single-player in the original game is down to lack of necessary resources. They didn't have the time or equipment to implement both a single-player and a multiplayer. And speaking of making more options available in the second game, the new title is set to be released on all current gaming platforms. That means the Xbox One, PS4, and the PC. There's no platform exclusivity this time round. If you remember, Titanfall never came out on the PlayStation 4, but that doesn't mean that there could be a particular siding for one console or the other later down the line, just a bit like Call of Duty now sides with the PlayStation system. The lead writer for Titanfall 2, Jesse Stern, has confirmed a few other details as well, and they're more along the setting of the game and the backstory. Here's a quote from a recent interview that he did with Forbes. "The multiplayer game will be even better than it was the first time around. The first game was an Xbox exclusive initially, and this one is going to be more widely available, I believe, on all platforms. One of the shortcomings of the first game was that we did not have the mechanism to tell everyone, here's who you are, here's where you are, and who's around you. We knew all the answers, we just couldn't deliver it." What Stern is referring to here is the lack of single player in the original game, which sets the tone for the multiplayer usually. Look at past Call of Duty titles for proof. A lot of what's going on in the single player gives you hints and elements of understanding as to why you're shooting other people in the location you're in. It gives meaning to the conflict. Stern goes on to say this: So we're doing our best to deliver a vision of grand global colonial warfare, retelling the story of the American Revolution and the American Civil War in space. We imagine the next generation of immigrants moving out to the new frontier of an inhabitable planet. Rather than taking a traditional sci-fi approach to that, we wanted to look at how that would happen practically. What the ships would look like, and with machines that were designed for excavation and construction, demolition and working the land, and what happens when they're turned into instruments of war. What inspires us is the junction of technological advancement with the inevitability of conflict and war, and what the next war might look like. In Titanfall 2, there will be a lot of scenes where science meets magic, but keeping it grounded and dirty and human and real. Now that's a lot of information to digest in one go, but we do now have a very good understanding of what the underlying story will be behind Titanfall 2. We'll be looking at a believable migration of humans from one planet to another, not with amazing flying robots, but with machinery that was intended to help the migration survive. And of course, once things go a bit wrong, as they always do, those machines might come in handy. Plus, we now know that the single-player story will be able to give a lot more context to the fighting that's going on in the multiplayer. You'll understand why you're fighting and what the stakes are. That all sounds very interesting and leaves me wanting to know so much more about Titanfall 2, but I guess we're going to have to wait for the developers to release some more information. But thanks very much for watching. I do hope you enjoy it. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Titanfall 2 is obviously going to be a bit of a split topic. It was when Titanfall launched anyway. I think it was technically a very good product, but a lot of people had fairly strong opinions about the game, so maybe leave some of those below today. And while you're down there, drop me a like as well. But until next time, my name is Westie, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.